All right, hello everybody. Welcome to our introduction for what we call week three, and just a couple just kind of timeline points. We are literally just after this week, we'll be just over halfway done with the class, which is pretty cool. And then you just have one more class after this, so you guys are so close to being done. So congratulations on your work, and I hope that for your sake, you just keep doing what you're doing. If you see that person in the back, that's my daughter. She's finished her last day of high school today, so we're pretty propped up about that. Pretty excited for her as she graduates and moves on to the next level. So super cool and real proud of her as well. So I want to thank you this week for your work on digital citizenship and cyber safety. I was thinking about this a little bit. We put computers in kids' hands, and then we spend a lot of time on this whole like cyber safety, digital, whatever, digital citizenship, whatever. And I'm just kind of curious, like back in the day when they put pencils in kids' hands, if they had a lesson on, not stabbing people in the eye with them or whatever. So the whole idea of digital citizenship and cyber safety is an important concept, but don't spend a ton of time on this in your environment. I mean, maybe a reminder once or twice a year. That's about it. We have to trust that kids are going to make the right decision, and we have to continue to give them the tools to do that. But spending a lot of time on this is one of those things that kind of walks that line of where do we draw the line on what we expect out of our students, and what can they do just in a positivity sense to make sure that they're making the right call. So the other thing about that digital citizenship, as you review and commenting on each other's work this week, remember to understand the different levels that this stuff is being delivered to, because it's completely different from one level to the next. This week, we will have a weekly technology spotlight from Jamie. So if you can review and comment on that. And then I want to just kind of throw applause out there to Kristen and to Zach this last week. Kristen's stuff on Nearpod. I'm very curious about Nearpod. I've actually been exposed to it a couple of times. It's almost like a learning management system. It kind of does a lot of different things. And then I'm a big fan of Kahoot. I don't use it a ton in my classroom, but we found a way to use it in our school for like big group assemblies and things like that. We create Kahoots and we let the kids bring their computers. We have kind of a big, huge event in our school, and so we really like Kahoot. So you will be reviewing everybody's digital citizenship lessons. Please review and comment on the stuff that you didn't do. Okay. There's some stuff in this week's learning on iPads. I don't know how much iPad stuff you guys are doing. I know you guys are predominantly Chromebook people, but I think iPads still have huge value, and they do kind of open some creativity windows. There's no work for you to do on this related to iPads, but I do want you to look it over, and I do have it organized by level. So primary levels, middle levels, and high school. So take a peek at that. The next piece is Google Sites, and I want to just thank you again for linking or whatever we're putting forward with that is our communication source to parents. One quick note on Google Sites. Well, the first thing is this is Assessment 5, and as I stated last week, many of you are kind of, you're ahead of the game when it comes to your websites and to how you're handling that. We're going to build on your websites, and I do want to challenge you on that just a little bit. There's two components that we'll build. The first one is how do we communicate with parents? And the second one, and then this is what we'll put in this week, is something that I really like. It's a blog, and I'm going to have you build a blog this week that will actually you'll be able to put right into your website. Now, you might be sitting there saying, why do I, as an educator, why do I need a blog? I don't know. Do you need a blog? And the reality of that is you'll have to make that decision when you're done. But one of the things that I firmly believe in is that when you finish this class, and even prior to this class, I want you to think of yourself as a technology leader in your system. And if that's what you're willing to do, if you are willing to jump at that level, one of my challenges to you very simply is, what can you do to make that a reality? And what can you post? What can you share? Not just with your staff, not just with your students, with parents, with community. And I think a blog brings that all together. The other cool thing about a blog is once you get comfortable with it, and it takes a little while, but once you get comfortable with it, it's a great literacy piece for students to create their own blogs and write about some things you're doing in your class, or maybe you'll allow them to write in your blog. I think it's a really great way for them to share their own learning, which is another easy teaching point as well. Um, I'm going to ask you to use Blogger. Blogger is something that directly communicates with Google, which is great. But if you choose and if you have some ideas about blogs from a different format, I'm okay with that. I think it's important to give you guys some choice. I'll be real about it. I use a blog called WordPress, which I'll share with you this week. I don't put a lot in there. I probably have about 15 posts in my blog, but it's something that I really do believe as kind of a leader that you do need to share some of the things that you see, some of the things that you do, and put those out in front of your staff. There's nothing wrong with a 2 to 3 minute piece. For those of you that subscribe to the George Couros piece that I shared last week, his blogs are awesome, and they probably take a minute to read. So I would just encourage you to think of yourself in that way. Post your blog, share your blog on your Twitter account, share it with your staff, share it on your website. All those things are really powerful. So the next piece on here is that I want you to keep thinking about your hyperdoc. The hyperdoc is a big project, and I think sometimes we think, because if you've ever done hyperdocs before, which I'm guessing some of you have, we've kind of thought of them in a small scale. The assessment, I believe it's assessment 6, is a large scale project that involves a hyperdoc. And you guys all have the capabilities for this. So it's something that's not necessarily just a lesson. It might be a full unit. And it also brings in a lot of different things. So first of all, hyperdocs are available for every level. And secondly, they are one of the better tools for parent communication and also for parent support around teaching. And this is a huge part of this. My goal here, as you probably have picked up, is what do you do to bring your students to another level, and what can you do to engage parents in that process? So part of the hyperdoc is if a kid brought an assignment home and the parent said, I don't know how to help you, those things would actually be built into the hyperdoc. So we'll talk more about that as we get a little further forward. But again, keep thinking that way, because I think that'll really help you process this hyperdoc project when it's due. The major work this week is assessment 3 and assessment 4. Now I realize that's 2 assessments in 1 week, but when you really look at them, they're kind of simple. And I just I put them together for that reason, because I want you to spend a little bit more time on some of the other assessments, and these ones seem to come off relatively simply. Assessment 3 talks about a game or activity that you're currently doing in your class. I know we've done a little bit of this already, but now I want you to take that game or activity and share the SAMR level that goes with it. Okay, so it's not a judgment if you have a lower SAMR level, but it is a challenge for you to think of something that might push that envelope a little bit. Okay, so in order to answer assessment 3, you're actually going to answer it in my blog. And one of the things that I like about that is I've actually allowed some of my other students to put their answers in there as well. And so you'll be able, when you're going to post in my blog, you'll see their responses too. And that'll give you some idea on what they do. And maybe even before you choose to submit, maybe you want to look at some of their responses too. So I really like the blog format because it gives you that online posting ability where you can see other people's work. Assessment 4 is kind of a cool opportunity for you, and I know some of you are interested in this. This is called Global Connections. Global Connections is, how do you take your classroom out of your classroom without leaving your classroom? And this is a neat idea, and it's something that I really want you guys to consider pushing yourself on. And it's honestly something that you can brainstorm now and really think about, how do I put this in next year? Because we're running out of time this year. I completely get that, but it's an opportunity for you to think, what's next? And so I'm going to share some things. I'm going to share something called ePals with you, which is an electronic form of pen pals all over the world. It's relatively simple, almost like a Facebook of pen pals, where you can just search around and find somebody that has a similar topic, similar age group, similar diverse dynamic, all those things. So you can make those decisions when you look at the ePal site. There's also some opportunities for you in global connections around Google Meet, around tying in your Twitter account, and some other things like that. So you'll be posting some things on this, and you'll be sharing some ideas this week. I do have an assignment this week related to learning management systems, and this is relatively simple in idea, but I did put a little bit heavier points on it, because learning management systems, and many of you are familiar with a couple of them, which would include Google Classroom and Schoology. But there's a lot of research out there about some LMS systems that are actually